Everyone, it's John from What Up, and welcome back to another video. This is part one of a two-part series on the Karaethon cycle, The Prophecies of the Dragon from the Wheel of Time book series. Now, this will relate to the show in some small way, however, it may be changed because they have cut out and changed parts of the prophecies and taken some artistic license with them. In fact, the first season of the Amazon Prime show had basically called the prophecies unreliable and may have been mistranslated, which is part of the reason why they didn't know if the dragon was male or female. So, again, take these with a grain of salt if you're using them directly for the show. However, I do suspect that many of them will show up because they are core components of the story. Now, if you're new to the channel and you don't know what I do here, I normally cover Wheel of Time show news. That's leaks, casting, set videos, pictures, all of that stuff. Anything and everything to do with the Sony and Amazon production, that's what I do here. Although, since we are waiting a fair bit of time for Season 2, it looks like it won't be out till 2023, I'm going to do a lot of Wheel of Time content about the books as well. So if you like that sort of thing, make sure you subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell. Now, before we get actually into the video and talking about these prophecies, spoiler warning. In this video, we're talking about the prophecies of the dragon, and we're going through the book series chronologically from the Eye of the World all the way to A Memory of Light. So I have to give full spoiler warnings. If you haven't read the entire series, that's the Eye of the World all the way to Book 14, A Memory of Light, be forewarned, I'm going to ruin major plot points, major character arcs, and scenes from the entire book series. Alright, all of that being said, let's get on to the video. Alright, so what are the prophecies of the dragon? Well, essentially, they're everything and anything the dragon has to do to proclaim himself, fight the Dark One, and win. That's pretty much it. That's it. That's in a nutshell what these things are. Now, they come in the book series in a number of different forms, either in big chunks at the beginning of the book or the beginning of the chapter, or they're talked about during the book itself. So what we'll do is we'll break down, I'll say the first book, The Eye of the World, we'll talk about them for a bit, then we'll go to the Great Hunt, so on and so forth. And there's a couple of interesting tidbits about the prophecies before we start. The first one is by Robert Jordan himself. He said that if he wrote them all down, it would be about a 300-page book, but he had no interest in doing that. Probably wouldn't be a very good read. So there are a lot of them, and a lot of them I'm not going to cover here because they're alluded to in the book series, and I probably will have missed a couple too. So if I happen to miss any of them that you notice, let me know in the description or in the comments down below. Of course, please say that. I'll pin the comments top if I miss a couple of the prophecies, because I'm probably going. Brandon Sanderson did have something interesting to say about the prophecies. He basically said if the prophecies aren't fulfilled, the pattern will break. Which makes sense, because if the dragon doesn't proclaim himself or do certain things to be able to fight the Dark One and win, the Dark One's going to win anyway, so the pattern will break. So that. All right, we're going to start off in the Eye of the World. Now, in the glossary of the Eye of the World, it says the prophecies say the dragon reborn will bring a new breaking to the world. Now, when you first read that, and what a lot of the people in the book series seem to think is that Rand, or whoever the dragon would be at the time, is going to basically shatter the world like it did during the breaking. This alludes to something just a little bit different, though. He didn't physically break the world so much as he broke all ties that bind. So essentially, he destroyed every alliance to everyone else and tried to take everyone for his own, under his own rule. He eventually, essentially became an emperor and wanted everyone loyal to him. So he's breaking all their alliances. That was the breaking of the world. That's what they meant there. Again, in the Eye of the World, one of the prophecies says the stone tier will never fall until the people of the dragon come to the stone. Another says the stone will never fall until the sword that cannot be touched is wielded by the dragon's hand. This one's pretty straightforward, especially if you've read the book series. The prophecy was fulfilled. The stone fell and the people of the dragon, the Aiel, showed up, but they didn't really take the stone until Rand took Kalendor from the heart of the stone during his fight with the Forsaken. So they both kind of happened around the same time, filled that prophecy. All right, so now we go into the Great Hunt. The opening prophecy for the Great Hunt is one of those big chunks of prophecy here, and we're going to try to get through it here. And it shall come to pass what men made shall be shattered, and the shadow that shall lie across the pattern of the age, and the Dark One shall once more lay his hand upon the world of man. Women shall weep, and men quail, as the nations of the earth are rent like rotting cloth. Neither shall anything stand nor abide, yet shall one be born to face a shadow, and there shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth at his rebirth. In sackcloth and ashes shall he clothe the people, and he shall break the world again by his coming, tearing apart all ties that bind. Like the unfettered dawn shall he blind us and burn us, yet shall the dragon reborn confront the shadow at the last battle, and his blood shall give us the light. Let tears flow, all you people of the world, weep for your salvation. Whew, that's a mouthful. Essentially, when they talk about what men made are shattered, that's the discs, so the seals of the Dark One's prison, because Rand had to shatter those essentially to fight the Dark One and kind of clear a path to rebuild. And as he shattered them, he was releasing the Forsaken, and that was the Dark One's touch upon the world. So the Dark One was physically able to touch the seasons, physically able to actually interact with the weather and different things, but the Forsaken themselves went out and interacted with people in the world. All the nations and alliances and lives people had made for themselves, He also basically shattered all of that. That refers to his breaking of the world. The wailing at his rebirth, well, essentially after Ram was born, everything went downhill. The world kind of went to shit. And there weren't very many people that were happy about it. There were people that understood that he was necessary or wanted to use him, although most people were scared or unhappy the dragon had been reborn. All right, so the next one here from the Great Hunt was his blood shall give us the light, and that one links to the twice dawns the day prophecy, which we'll talk about much later on. Essentially, there was an eclipse during the last battle. Getting ahead of ourselves here a bit. That'll happen probably in the part 2 video. For he shall come like the breaking dawn and shatter the world again with his coming and make it anew. This relates to a couple of different things. So Rand and Luthieren's titles were both Lord of the Morning and Prince of the Dawn, so there's a little bit of that there. The Aiel referred to him as he who comes from the dawn because when he left Rhuidean, he came back up with the dawn. He was also born at dawn on the slopes of Dragonmount, so the beginning of the day and rebirth seems to be a common theme with the Dragon Reborn and Rand, so that's where that comes from. The Karaethon cycle, the prophecies of the dragon say the dragon will be reborn at the slopes of Dragonmount. Well, it's fulfilled. He was born on the slopes of Dragonmount. We know that he was born during the blood snow of the Aiel War. He will be of the ancient blood raised by the old blood. The ancient blood will be the Aiel. They can date themselves all the way back to well before the breaking in the Age of Legends. And then Rand was raised in the Two Rivers, where the old blood is very strong. Now, it was Tam and Karaethon that raised him. Not his real parents, but they are essentially his real parents because they're the ones that raised him from birth. So, born of the old blood, born of the ancient blood, raised by the old blood. That's where that one comes. When the winds of Tarmangaddon scour the earth, he will face the shadow and bring forth light again in the world. This prophecy was fulfilled in the memory of light. Essentially, he won. So he fought Tarmangaddon and won. We know that was a thing because the book series didn't just end all in darkness and fire and flame. There's that. This one is probably one of my more favorite prophecies, and I can't wait to see this on screen. I really hope they keep this storyline mostly intact. 5 ride forth for return. Above the watchers shall he proclaim himself, bannered across the sky in fire. So this refers to the events at Falme near the end of the Great Hunt. Essentially, you have Mat, Rand, Perrin, Huron, and Ingtar. They went into Falme, but Ingtar did not return. Now, we know that Ingtar was a dark friend, and he kind of wanted to redeem himself at that point because he knew he'd never blow the Horn of Valir. So he held back a bunch of people so everyone else could escape. So that's the 5 ride forth for return. And the rest of that is when Rand fought Shamael in the sky above Falme, basically proclaiming himself for everyone to see. And we have this one here. Twice and twice shall he be marked, twice to live, twice to die. Once the heron to set his path, twice the heron to name him true. Once the dragon for remembrance lost, twice the dragon for the price he must pay. This refers to all the markings Rand got. So he got the first heron branded on his palm in the mirror world. The second one fighting Shamael in the sky at Falme, after which he proclaimed himself the Dragon Reborn. And then the 2 dragons he received in Rhuidean when he went through the glass columns and basically became a clan chief. So, pretty neat. The Remembrance Lost, the second for the price he must pay. That's his sacrifice in the rocks of Sheo Ghul. This prophecy also states again that he will live and die, as does the Twice Dawns a Day prophecy. Again, we're going to mention that one a few times during this. We'll get to that and explain it much later on. So twice dawns a day when his blood is shed, once for morning, once for birth, red on black, the dragon's blood stains the rocks of Sheo Ghul. In the pit of doom shall his blood free the men from the shadow. So Rand's blood is necessary to save the world. It ties to the very opening prophecy and also to Min's vision. So she had a vision of black rock wet with blood all the way around Rand, and that's referred to a bunch of different times in the book series. Now, Rand's side wound inflicted by Shamael broke open upon entry to Sheo Ghul at the very end during the last battle, and he bled in the rocks there. So this is quite literally his blood on the rocks. A lot of people thought, well, maybe it's some of his family. I remember when the books came out, there was a ton of speculation around this one in particular. No one thought that he would actually bleed in the rocks, but that's essentially what they do. The once for morning refers to the high death toll of the last battle and Rand's bodily death. So for those of you who haven't read the series, I apologize, but Rand dies. I told you it's full spoilers. So a bunch of people died during the last battle, including Rand. And once for birth is the birth of the new age and the fact that Rand is reborn anew in Moradin's body. That is a whole different video. We're going to talk about that, how that happened, how he basically transmuted himself from his own dying body to Moradin's body who wanted to live. We'll talk about that in another video, though. Twice Dawns Today was from the eclipse. So essentially, due to the time warp around Sheo Ghul, there was an eclipse, and that eclipse lasted for almost the duration of the last battle. So that's what they mean by twice dawns the same day. This is a stone of tear can never fall till Kalendor is wielded by the Dragon Reborn. That one was already mentioned earlier. We already talked about that. People of the Dragon, the Aiel came and actually wielded Kalendor. Stone fell. All right, so now we're getting into the Dragon Reborn. We're going to talk about the prophecies there. That's the third book of the Wheel of Time. So the first one is, his paths shall be many, and he shall know, and who shall know his name? For he shall be born among us many times in many guises, as he has been and ever will be, time without end. His coming shall be like the sharp edge of the plow, turning our lives in furrows from out of the places where we lie in our silence, the breaker of bonds, the forger of change, the maker of futures, the unshaper of destiny. So essentially, the dragon's been reborn a number of times. Not always been called the dragon in the book series, at least anyway, but this particular person was born to fight the Dark One and be the Light's champion, or the Dark One's champion, actually, a number of different times, and his life has taken many different guises, like the prophecy says. When Rand used the portal stone to go to Falme, he saw through a lot of those different lives. Now, in most of them, he didn't take the way he was supposed to go, so he didn't take the path he was supposed to. He didn't fulfill any of the prophecies. He didn't actually become the dragon, so went again loose there, dying in most of those. But this happens again and again and again, and that's what that first part means. And the second part is he's basically broken the bonds between many different nations, alliances, and peoples and forged them back to himself so he could use them to fight the shadow. That's kind of a recurring theme through a lot of these prophecies. This is also mentioned. He is yet to break the nations or shatter the world, but what does it mean that he shall slay his people with the sword of peace, destroy them with the leaf? What does it mean that he shall bind the 9 moons to serve him? There are others. What wound of madness and cutting of hope has he healed? What chains has he broken? And who put who into chains? So this one is almost straightforward if you've read the books before, but if you haven't read them, there's some question here. So Rand broke the nations and shattered the world, but not really in the way of the breaking. We talked about this before. He basically broke all their alliances and forged them back to him. When they talk about the Sword of Peace and the Leaf, essentially he revealed the history of the Aiel to them. And it was so shameful that he basically pretty much destroyed the Aiel culture in one fell swoop. That's what they meant by slaying his people with the Sword of Peace and destroying them with the Leaf, because they found out they followed the way of the Leaf before, and it just absolutely crushed them. Binding the 9 moons refers to the fact that Matt and Rand both persuaded the Shan-Chan Empire to help him fight the Shadow Spawn and the Dark One during the book series. The Wound of Madness and Cutting of Hope refers to the taint. So, I guess corruption, I guess if you want to call it. That's what the show calls it. But Rand was able to cure the taint, or the corruption on the male half, the true source. And then the final part, all the chains and bonds broken. We've covered that a number. It has to do with the fact that he's binding people to himself and they're foregoing their own alliances. On the slopes of Dragonmount shall he be born of a maiden wedded to no man. This one's pretty straightforward. He's born to a maiden of the spear. Maidens cannot wed, and they're not supposed to actively fight in wars while they're carrying child, although his mother did, because it was prophesied that she had to, so she basically went to the Bloodstone and fought there. We've seen that in episode 7, the cold open of episode 7 of the show. Very, very cool. Although we did learn about it a number of different times very early on in the book series, both in the Eye of the World and the Great Hunt. They talk about it exclusively. In the next book, The Shadow Rising, you learn a lot about the history of it. All right, so now we're going to talk about The Shadow Rising. So The Shadow Rising is probably one of my favorite books in the series. It's where the series starts to really get good, I guess is the best way to put it, for me at least anyway. The very first prophecy there is, the shadow shall rise across the world and darken every land, even to the smallest corner, and there shall neither be light nor safety. He who shall be born of the dawn, born of the maiden, according to prophecy, he shall stretch forth his hands to catch the shadow, and the world shall scream in pain of salvation. All glory be to the Creator and to the light, and he who shall be born again. May the light save us for him. This one is almost pretty literal. So Rand was born at dawn on Dragonmount to a maiden of the spear. The shadow did spread everywhere, including Shara and Shan-Chan, and the world needs the Dragon Reborn to live, although no one's really very happy about it. So he will save them, but he's going to piss everybody off, basically, as they talk about it. So, the next one is, power of the shadow made human flesh awakened to turmoil, strife, and ruin. The reborn one, marked and bleeding, dances a sword in dreams and mist. Change the shadow spawn to his will. From the city, lost and forsaken, leads the spears to war once more, breaks the spears, makes him see truth long hidden in the ancient dream. Almost rhymes, I like that. So, power of the shadow made human flesh waken to turmoil, strife, and ruin. That's the Forsaken actually physically being released from seals. So as the seals break and weaken, they come out and see the world again. The reborn one, marked and bleeding, dances a sword in dreams and mist. when he's fighting a Shamael in the Dream World in Teleran Rioid. He's hurt, he's bleeding, his wound is broken open, and he's fighting him there. Change the Shadow Spawn to his will. That is probably almost directly a reference to Asmodean teaching him how to use one power unwillingly. So essentially, there's a plot between Lanfear. It's not any plot between Lanfear and anyone. Lanfear basically just put a shield on him, let him have a trickle flow of the power, and told him to teach Rand. Or she'd tell the other Forsaken that he's doing it willingly. That's what that means there. From the city, Lost and Forsaken leads the Spears to war once more, breaks the Spears, makes them see truth long hidden in the ancient dream. So the ancient city is Roydian, and then from there, he basically talks to the Aiel, who are the Spears, tells them of their past, and breaks them. Because finding out that they followed the way of the leaf and they basically abandoned that is not really great for their very honor-driven society. And those that are left, the ones that don't throw down their spears and basically run away, he leads them to flatlands. There's that. All right. So now we have into the heart, he thrusts his sword into the heart to hold their hearts. Who draws it out shall follow after. What hand can grasp that fearful blade? So this refers to Kalendor. So basically, Rand read this, very literally interpreted the prophecy, took Kalendor and thrust it back into the heart of stone in Tyr to remind the Tyrian nobility that he would be back. He put a bunch of wards on it and stuff so no one else could take it, taught Jahar Narishima about the wards, and sent him back to get Kalendor much later on. And he was able to get the sword, bring it back, and help cleanse the taint on Saeed, and that's what that refers to there. All right, so now we're going to talk about the fires of heaven. That's the very next book. With his coming are the dread fires born again, the hills burn and the lands turn sear, the tides of men run out and the hours dwindle, the wall is pierced, the veil of parting raised, storms rumble beyond the horizon, and the fires of heaven purge the earth. There's no salvation without destruction, no hope this side of death. So the first part of that prophecy basically refers to the very long summer they're having and the drought. So the hills burn, the lands turn sear, there's wildfires, there's no crops being born, it's dry, it's gross. That's what they're talking about there. Tides of men run out, the hours dwindle, the wall is pierced, and the veil of parting raised. This probably refers to the fact that you're starting to see ghosts. It's about this point in the series, and then for the rest of the series pretty much, that occasionally characters will see ghosts and people that are dead because the veil between all the worlds is thinning, because the last battle is coming. Then the last bit here, storms rumble beyond the horizon, the fires of heaven purge the earth. The storms could be anything. Could be all of the war that's coming, could it be the Sharans, could be the Shan-Chan, could be the literal huge storm that's raging across the land in certain areas. And when they say the fires of heaven, one of the things about this book is it's called the fires of heaven. It means balefire. It factors very heavily into the book, and balefire is used a lot in this particular. All right, the next thing in the fires of heaven they want to talk about here is Elida. She says, do any of you believe that Rand will willingly go to his prophesied death to save the world? She's taking this quite literally. She thinks, after reading the prophecies, that Rand will die during the last battle to save everyone, which is kind of true. He does. However, it's not really mentioned anywhere, and she doesn't get this, that he can switch bodies and kind of live beyond that. It's mentioned in the prophecies later on, but nobody really got that. So this is her literally interpreting that. All right, so the last book we're going to do today is Lord of Chaos. There's only really one prophecy in the Lord of Chaos. It's a closing prophecy, and we're going to break it down a little bit by bit here. So the first part of the prophecy is the unstained tower breaks and bends knee to the forgotten sign. That's the White Tower, and the forgotten sign is the ancient symbol of the Aes Sedai. So essentially, there's a very famous line here where kneel or you shall be knelt. The Aes Sedai basically bend knee, both sides of the tower, to Rand and swear fealty to him. So that's what that means there. The seas rage, storm clouds gather unseen, beyond the horizon, hidden fires swell, and serpents nestle in the bosom. The seas rage could be the fact that the Shan-Chan and the sea folk are fighting at sea. Storm clouds gather unseen beyond the horizon, hidden fires swell. Could be pretty much any other possible fighting they haven't encountered yet. The Sharans, the Shan-Chan, anyone else who hasn't actually shown up on force at this point in the book series. Serpents nestle in the bosom. I'm going to guess that's more than likely probably the Dark Friends that are surrounding Rand at this point. He doesn't get to see who they are or recognize them until much later on in the book series. What was exalted is cast down. What was cast down is raised up. This one's pretty interesting because the Aes Sedai start the book out in a position of power. They're exalted. They are basically considered the pinnacle of the world. And before the last battle, they're broken, they're fighting, there's all kinds of problems with them, so they're cast down. They redeem themselves during the last battle, of course, but up to that point, they basically lose prestige from the first of the book series all the way to then. Now, the Ashaman, or the male channelers, they start out as being reviled, feared, and hunted. Throughout the book series, as they build their numbers and as they do things, and as the taint on the Maelhath, the True Source, is cleansed, they gain in prestige all the way up to and including the last battle. I think that's what that means there. The very final bit here is order burns to clear the path. I think this refers to the fact that Rand and Harrenfell basically worked out that he had to clear the rubble to rebuild, so he had to break the seals to build again. It's there. Anyway, yeah, a lot of talking, whole lot of prophecies. Again, we're only up to the end of the Lord of Chaos right now, but very interesting nonetheless. I hope you enjoy this sort of video. I'm going to do a few of them like this. We're explaining certain things, talking about stuff. Watch for part 2. It'll come in the next few days or so. Finish off the rest of the book series and all the prophecies mentioned there. Now, a couple of housekeeping bits before we leave. First part is my Patreon is linked down below. If you folks want to support the channel, go click there. Every little bit helps, obviously. And if you want to get some cool What Up swag, there are different tiers there. I'll send you some stickers and magnets and keychains and t-shirts, things like that. That's all there. Also, I do have a second channel now. The link is down below in the description box. It covers all other fantasy. So right now, I'm covering Wheel of Time specifically in this channel. That will never change. But I started watching other fantasy, and of course I like other fantasy properties like Lord of the Rings, Vox Machina, Sea, Witcher, things like that. I cover that on my other channel. It's in its infancy. It's brand new, but it's a lot of fun. I'm just having fun with it. So if you like that sort of thing, go over there, check it out there, subscribe. I'll put out a few videos there as well. All right. Thank you so very much for sticking with me here to the very end. Here's to many more.